Justice-impacted people who are going through the federal prison system or the federal judicial system find it really easy to get discouraged because they are anticipating that they've lost a sense of control over their life, and they have. Many times they may feel as if they're a marionette puppet with many other people pulling the strings, and they don't really have an opportunity to influence how things are going to roll out. And this is particularly true now as we're in this era of the First Step Act, where it looks like the Bureau of Prisons is never going to carry out this concept of awarding earned time credits to people who have spent their time in prison working hard to prepare for success upon release. My name is Michael Santos, and I'm the founder of Prison Professors, a nonprofit group that works to improve outcomes for all justice-impacted people. And I wanted to present this article that I wrote this morning with hopes of helping people get a different perspective on the slow rollout and methodical pathway towards prison reform, with hopes of helping people inside, or all justice-impacted people, get a better understanding of what they can do to advance the ball a little bit closer as we try to bend the arc toward justice and towards improvements for people who are going through the system. So this is an article that appears today on our blog, and you could go to the blog just simply right up there. That today I'm filming this today on October the 13th, but it's just titled The Slow Methodical Path to Prison Reform. We will also publish it under our advocacy page so that people will continue to be able to read it whenever they want to read it. So I'm just going to go ahead and read it right now. I'll probably break periodically to give some commentary. But the reason that I do this is because a lot of people who obtain our content are inside of jails or prisons, so they don't have access to the internet. Other people are listening on iTunes or on a YouTube type channel, and they don't have time necessarily to read, so they want to listen. And that's the reason I try to provide content in every format so that people can get it as they want. If you're watching this outside, I do hope that you will subscribe to our channel so to support these efforts of moving the needle and helping more people in prison emerge as law-abiding, contributing citizens. And I think that's in the interest of every American. So I'm going to start with a little blurb. Major prison reform movements influence release dates and quality of life for millions of people serving sentences. Let's work together to bring reforms that improve outcomes for people in the system. And of course, if you visit our website, you can download a PDF of this article. There are links to listen to it on iTunes or on our YouTube channel or our social media presence. So the slow, methodical path to prison reform. The Bureau of Prisons has been slow to implement all the benefits of the First Step Act. Our team at Prison Professors will continue our advocacy efforts to help leaders see the value of this critical legislation. We need help from people inside. Congress passed the First Step Act legislation several years ago. Many people wonder why it takes so long for the Bureau of Prisons to begin issuing time credits regularly. They question commitment when they see memorandums that block the will of Congress, such as stopping people from receiving the time cuts once they advance to within 18 months of their release dates. The slow rollout of the First Step Act doesn't surprise me, but I have a different perspective. I am always optimistic when I see incremental changes that benefit people in federal prison. The First Step Act changed the federal prison in significant ways that will help all people in prison. For example, the Act incentivizes people to prepare for success upon release. The Act mandates that the Bureau of Prison changes its mission to include preparing people for success upon release. And the Act allows people to self-advocate in ways that could potentially lead to compassionate release. The First Step Act is not a get-out-of-jail-free card. People should prepare themselves well to reap the benefits of the First Step Act. If they understand all the benefits of the Act, they will have more reason to use all their critical thinking skills while going through the journey. When the BOP is slow to roll out all the benefits of the First Step Act, they should remember that every piece of prison reform legislation has required massive amounts of advocacy and litigation. The more attention we bring to the Act and how it can improve outcomes of America's criminal justice system, the more we work to move the needle, bending the arc of justice to favor those who use the time inside to prepare for law-abiding, contributing lives upon release. Below, I include a historical perspective on reform acts that influence the lives of people in federal prison. We're going to start with the Sentence Reform Act of 1984, also known as the SRA. When I began serving my sentence in 1987, the federal criminal justice system was going through significant reform. For decades, the country relied upon an indeterminate sentencing system. With an indeterminate sentencing system, a judge imposes a sentence. Later, parole board members would assess the person's behavior in prison. They could allow the person to transition from prison to the community if he had an acceptable record and a plausible plan to succeed upon release. Members of Congress voted to change the law because they wanted truth in sentencing. They did not like that a person in one jurisdiction could spend more time in prison than another, despite both people having similar offenses, backgrounds, and prison records. With the SRA, members of Congress established the U.S. Sentencing Commission. The Sentencing Commission established guidelines for judges to rely upon when sentencing people. The policies required judges to consider the criminal offense and the person's criminal history. Judges would then use the guidelines to select a sentence within a relatively narrow range. Further, the SRA made all offenses committed after November 1st, 1987 as being a part of the new sentencing law. Besides mandating a sentencing range for judges to impose, the new law also abolished the U.S. Parole Board and lowered the number of days people could earn through good time credits. Although Congress, and this is an important thing that I'm going to try and highlight here, I think I can go like that. Although Congress passed the SRA in 1984, it took many years of litigation and advocacy to change how judges used the law and how the Bureau of Prisons calculated the time that people had to serve. In the beginning, the judges considered the guidelines to be mandatory. Effective advocacy led to a change that made the guidelines advisory, which was a massive victory for people in prison and people going through the system. That change opened opportunities to work toward persuading the judge on reasons for mercy or leniency at sentencing. After longer than 30 years, advocacy led the Bureau of Prisons to begin applying all the good time credits that Congress intended. People that served time before those advocacy efforts succeeded did not receive the benefit that people receive today. Now, that's an important takeaway that I really want to highlight, because guys who are in prison today know that the First Step Act, know that Congress passed the First Step Act, and they know that several years have passed before people started getting all of the benefits. But it's important to realize that this act didn't even exist for people in 2017. And people that were serving their sentences in 2019 or 20 or 21 didn't even have opportunities to score on a minimum pattern score or a low pattern score and earn time credits. That didn't even exist. So what we can expect are that people who are going into the system now will receive benefits that earlier people didn't receive, and we can expect that it's still going to take many thousands of hours of advocacy efforts to really push the system to benefit all people. And that's something that I am personally committed to, and I know that every member of our community at Prison Professors is committed to doing as well. So I want to highlight these things for people to have a mindset of saying, okay, this is going to take a long effort to try and change, and we are committed to helping. We're also going to ask at the end of this article for you to help us help you. But now let's continue with the Second Chance Act. The president signed the Second Chance Act of 2008 in 2008. Among other benefits for people in federal prison, the Second Chance Act opened opportunities for administrators to transition people in prison to residential reentry centers for the final 12 months of their time in prison. If people had 60-month sentences, the BOP could also send them to home confinement for the last 6 months. If they had sentences of less than 60 months, they could serve the final 10% of the sentence in home confinement. And again, I like this highlighting feature. People have invested thousands of hours in advocating for the full implementation of the Second Chance Act. Despite those efforts, few people receive the full benefit. According to what we learned from an interview we conducted with John Guston, who retired after a long career with the Bureau of Prisons, the agency doesn't control enough beds in halfway houses to maximize the use of placement in halfway houses. And for that reason, we strive to learn more about steps people can take to put themselves in a better position to get the highest level of liberty at the soonest possible time. The more people understand the system, the better they position themselves for self-advocacy, which will lead to increasing levels of freedom. We need more programs to incentivize people to earn freedom through merit rather than through time in prison. Remember, that is our goal. Change the system. And people in prison before the Second Chance Act did not receive the benefit of advocacy that has taken place since the president signed the legislation. And this brings us to the First Step Act. The First Step Act opens many more benefits for people in federal prison. Yet I anticipate that advocates will need to invest thousands of hours pushing the BOP to provide all the benefits. Again, there are many reasons for the slow rollout. As a person that served multiple decades in prison, I grew accustomed to accepting the slow rollout of major prison reforms. Yet I see benefits that others do not see with the First Step Act. My expectations are different, of course, because I am no longer standing up for the count. And certainly, I recognize I am at home leading the career that I chose. Despite those efforts, I stand committed to working for change and improvements that will lead more people in federal prison to higher levels of liberty at the soonest possible time and more opportunities for success and fulfillment upon release. While I work with our team at Prison Professors to bring about this change, I urge people in federal prison to assist us. Despite the slow rollout of earned time credit, we encourage people to continue doing their best to, participate in programs that will show they're working to success, avoid disciplinary infractions, remain current with participation in the financial responsibility program. This is a way to say, regardless of what other people do, I am always going to be working toward advancing the ball, toward getting closer to the success that I want to become. And the more I do that, the better off I am going to be on advocating for me, regardless of what happens. And that's super important for people to realize. And I know it's easier for me. I've already done my time. I was arrested. I was convicted. I did 9,500 days in prison. And now I am at home living with my wife in a house where we work together and do what we want to do. It's much harder for people who are going through it right now. My job is to be this ambassador of the message and help you see not only the pain you're going through right now, but the opportunities that are going to open for you in the future. And the more you do that, the better off you are going to be in not only reaping a reward, but helping tens of thousands of other people reap a reward. We have to understand this is a long-term effort, and I am asking you to be as committed as I am to changing this system. We are working with senior leadership in the Federal Bureau of Prisons to introduce our Preparing for Success After Prison course as an approved program that will allow people to work toward earned time credits regardless of where they're confined. I'm going to highlight that as well, because this is a major effort for us, right? To be able to work with the highest levels of the Bureau of Prisons and say, we need to create these programs for people in prison so that those people can earn the time credits regardless of where they are and make efforts. And I'm going to show you that program at the end of the video here. Now, persuading the Bureau of Prisons to include our program as a First Step Act requires thousands of hours of work, travel, and advocacy efforts. Yet the investment of time opens opportunities to visit several federal prisons and to make presentations and I begin those presentations in federal prisons. I begin those in November of this year, where I'm going to be traveling to federal prisons in Illinois, Indiana, and Missouri. And once the federal budget passes, I anticipate visiting several more federal prisons. And I hope that I'll have opportunities to meet members of our community. So during those visits, I anticipate getting more insight from senior leadership in the BOP. Through conversations with wardens, I will work to bring them closer to seeing the value of fully implementing the First Step Act. And suppose they advocate for changes within the system, such as monthly calculations of earned time credits and maximum use of home confinement. In that case, the advocacy effort will yield results for tens of thousands of people when we persuade wardens to see the benefits of change. Other leaders in DC will listen. So as a formerly incarcerated person, I cannot change the BOP alone. But suppose I can influence senior leaders to see the full benefit of implementation of the First Step Act. In that case, we will really advance the ball toward the goal line, and that will lead to better outcomes for every stakeholder in the system, including people serving time and their family members, and also, of course, taxpayers. When we succeed in this effort, we will have accomplished a tactic in our long-term strategy of working to improve outcomes for people in prison. And I am grateful to every person in prison who helps us along the way. If opportunities open to promote the prison professors' courses and programs in your institutions, such as advocating for the introduction of our courses and books, that is a small step that you can take to help us really move the needle along in small incremental ways. In fact, I'm working here with my wife, Carol. Could you just pass me a copy of Preparing for Success After Prison, the workbook that we're working to bring into prisons across America? Because this is a step. This takes thousands of hours to produce, okay? And of course, we're going to have it on our website for people to buy, but it's really not about buying, although all the revenues that come from this go to support our nonprofit advocacy efforts. It's really about helping administrators see that we can change the culture of the institution if we incentivize people to work toward earning freedom. And that's something that I did not have access to that when I was going through 26 years in prison, but I'm really working hard to help more people inside get that access, because it's a way that I believe I can help wardens see this benefit. And if wardens see this benefit, they're going to help regional directors see the benefit. If regional directors see the benefit, they're going to help the director see the benefit. And if the director sees the benefit, she can help members of Congress see the benefit. I mean, that's the slow rolling advocacy that I'm talking about, and we need your help to participate with us. I am Michael Santos with Prison Professors. If you are watching this on YouTube or listening on iTunes or seeing it on social media some way, I do hope that you will subscribe to our channel, visit our website to download all of the resources. We believe in you. We want to help you improve outcomes of your life, and that's the way we can be the change that we want to see in the world. On behalf of our entire team at Prison Professors, we believe in you. Thanks.